Oh, there. Hey. Hi, everybody. I know you guys are going to be watching this asynchronous, so there's not going to be anybody but me that you're hearing on this. I'm doing a Zoom conference solo for two reasons. One, so that you guys can get a little bit more richness in the class with me, with the PowerPoint, and I have a couple other things that I want to pull up today that I'm going to have you see on here. I'm actually going to bring up the Cengage MindTap course stuff. I've not required it of you guys just yet, and I should have actually been putting some stuff in here, but I've been forgetting. Especially since we're getting into a little bit more stuff with instructional strategies and with the planning piece of the curriculum, I feel it's important to actually see some stuff and critique it. And then two, we will not be having class at all tomorrow, like in physical form, so this has to be in asynchronous. That's why I'm doing it a day early. Now, with that being said, I'm going to take the time to do a few little reminders here. So let us get that out of the way first. Okay. As I am building this here, weeks 5 and 6, I only have one person so far done anything with that week. I'm going to need information on your guys's standards, and looking in here as to the question as to maybe why that isn't been done. Nope, it is an actual piece in here. Students will examine the state standards from math and choose 5 standards. Do not worry about the due date. This says due October 3rd. A lot of you guys are behind in this class, but I would like to have a clean slate as of October 17th. After October 17th, I'm not going to accept any late assignments. We're going to continue on from here. The biggest ones, of course, that I'm going to be really would want you to be done by next week is one, your philosophy of education paper criteria, your paper. The criteria is here, the actual rubrics up here, as you can see. And then if you have any questions on the taxonomies, I do encourage you to read the book. I encourage you to, if the book is confusing, you want to actually learn a little bit more or want to follow along, ours is October 3rd participation on taxonomies and objectives. Go through there and watch the conference piece, that Zoom piece on there. We cover a lot of material from the book over that. Now, also in here, you have a link to the math standards right here. You also have a link to the DPI sites for the English language arts. And you also have the understanding by design overview. I have on our schedule that we're supposed to be doing that today. I ended up doing that a little bit early, so it's in here instead. That's it for weeks 5 and 6. We need to move on. Week 7, that's where we're now. Mastering instructional planning is where we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be kind of building this as I go, and for sake of time, that's why it only looks like there's one link in here. There will be 2, maybe 3 links. The one link you see in here is midterm course evaluation. Now, because of the impending weather that may be coming up the next 2 days, we may not even have class anyway because they're predicting snow. You never know, it's North Dakota. So I have been given the opportunity to do the midterm instructional diagnosis via a SurveyMonkey. Now, please, you guys, I don't mean to beg, but let's prove that this can actually work. Now, it says on here that you guys will receive 10 extra bonus points for completing the survey. You have until October 14th to receive the points. If you click on here, there's a picture of the monkey and things like that. It actually looks like the same one that you do in the groups, the small group instructional diagnosis, except you're going to do it by each piece. Now, I'm not going to be able to see, you know, oh, Heather said, oh, this, and this, and that. But I'm have it set up to have feedback that you've done the survey. It's not going to show me each individual person's survey and what they exactly said, but it will give me feedback as to who did the survey. Yes, so since it's around that time to do the surveys, that's the way we're going to do that. With that being said, I'm going to get into the actual instructional piece for today. Okay. Now, since I'm doing this on my own, I can't have people say, yeah, nay, who's doing this, whatever, but okay. Now, I'm going to get over here to the PowerPoint. It works a lot better, I found out with Zoom, that is you have to share and unshare as we go. So anyway, chapter 5 is mastering instructional planning. Now, the reason I'm doing it like this is for some reason Zoom, when it pulls up the presentation slide, it wants me to stop and go into the presentational slide, and that's a big pain in the butt, so I'm going to do it this way. So anyway, here we go. There is a lot of learning objectives for this piece. Now, I'm not going to go over them. They're right here. And as you can see, it is a very extensive chapter. In fact, I don't know about you guys, one of the things I would love for you to say, give me yeah or nay on, is this book as an instructional source. I found it to be quite helpful. In fact, the fact that it comes with the online course stuff, that if I had built it nice, we could have done that way, but I know with it being asynchronous and all these other problems and various levels of technology in this class, that's why I've not done the Cengage course piece in there, but I am going to build it in, because you know what, you guys pay the money, or good, we're going to be using this. So anyway, a lot of planning, pre-planning, unit planning, lesson planning, activities stuff is going to be covered in this chapter. However, for sake of time, I am not really going to go over things like creative curriculum and high scope and bank and Saxon math and all that type of stuff. I'm not going to do that, but they do talk about in this chapter how the textbooks are a big effector of curriculum. Now, Lowry, you up in Lignite, your school has curriculums for different things. And that's one of the things I'd like to talk to you when I go visit you on Tuesday about observe your class, what kind of curriculum you have for physical education, because I know here in Newtown, because my husband is a physical education instructor, they use the Spark program because I've been given a grant to use it. That's another thing that is going to highly affect what kind of curriculums and stuff the school uses. Is do they have a grant that affects them to use it, that gives monies for travel and stuff like that. Surprise, surprise, you know, even though government gives monies and stuff like that, teachers and things like that can write for grants, even in the elementary K-12 program, if they want something special done for their group and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a big effector of with curriculum as well. Now, I've not been doing this too often, and if it looks kind of weird, it's the angle, but this is actually, if you want to at this point open your textbook and follow along with the PowerPoint, you may do so. I took this snapshot out from the beginning part of chapter 5. I really like the fact they have vignettes and classroom insights in here, and I haven't referred to them a whole awful lot in this, and it's doing an injustice. But here, as it because I love the questions and stuff that follows into it. Roberta has just had her signature notarized on her first teaching contract. It was an exciting moment during her final term before graduation. After taking care of business, she headed back to the education library. As she walked, she thought about the first days of school in late August, which were approaching. She had demonstrated her knowledge of various standards, performance outcomes, and the domains of learning. But now Roberta began to ponder the importance of pre-planning and devising ways to implement those plans with all of her students. Her coursework and student teaching had already given her a reality check on instructional planning, so she began a list of major implications of what she had learned. She thought about organizing instructional time to ensure she had covered at least the cognitive and affective taxonomies. Now, if those are a blur, you're going to need to stop right here and refer back to the chapter on the taxonomies. We didn't refer to every single piece of the taxonomies as the cognitive or behavior, whatnot, but what they're referring to as blooms. So please keep that in mind. How to make time for relevant activities, and of critical importance, how to apply concept of universal design. We didn't get a chance to cover that a whole awful lot. That was back in chapter 3 on it. They talked about multicultural and diverse learners. I'm going to insert that here because I feel that's important. Now, and in fact, to my recollection, I think I had you guys look at it in the PowerPoint anyway, but for sake, let's see, we'll pull it up back again anyways, because it's always good to refer to it. Okay, I'm in the PowerPoint for chapter 3. I'm scrolling down to where it talks about universal design. Under here where it says principles of UDL. Now, if I actually had some of you in a physical class, I would have us kind of pull this up and look at it. Okay. The universal principles of universal design for learning in differentiated classroom. Okay. So it has 3 different pieces of focus. Your teaching, the student's learning, and assessment of student learning. The principles for each are as follows. What it means for your teaching, it means multiple means of representation and differentiation of content. I like that it includes UDL and differentiation. UDL by itself just means different representations of content. Videos, mobile, posters, anchor charts, tables, timelines, video augmented reality. All those. What does it mean for learning? Multiple means of engagement. Individual learning, pair learning, group learning, small groups, large groups, all class. They're doing all those different things. Are they learning in your classroom? Or are they learning in the library? Are they going on field trips? Are they learning on the internet? And there's different ways that they process it. Assessment. Multiple means of expression of the final piece. What are they creating? Different things. Now, I know a few of you have taken my Physical Science for Elementary Teachers course, and I'm really big about that because in that course, what I did is I set up a lot of the assignments to be exactly how you would have it set up as a classroom via labs and stations. And in that piece, I'm going to do another pull up here in just a moment to really bring this into check, because this is wonderful and it'll be a good time to expose you guys to this anyways. So hi again. I'm going to be doing this a little bit as I go through. I apologize if you're getting a little dizzy. because with the 5 E's of physical science, or even science in general, are very integral to lesson plan design. I love using this. So taking from here, come on, where'd you go? Sure. I did a lot using Chris Kessler science. He was wonderful. His stuff was all based off of like 4th, 5th grade, actually a little bit the middle school type place models. And I got his stuff off of Teachers Paid Teachers. I actually paid for his curriculum. We did it in the class. It was good. But anyway, to get back into it, the 5E model, and they use this with science. You can use this with other things too, and it's amazing, and it really, really helps, is there's 5 E's to lesson planning. The first is engagement. Now, when we're talking about lesson planning here, this is what you begin in the beginning. If you had classes with Dr. Jumstead, you could call this the anticipatory set or even the hook. What are you going to do from the offset to get them started? They could be I can statements. Here in my class, when we did this physical science, I actually had posters. You can do that. Objectives. What are they able to do at the end of the class? Now, a good teacher will state in the lesson why in the world they're even doing it to begin with. Why are they even playing around with volcanoes? Why are they learning about Newton's law of physics? Why are they learning about adjectives and an argumentative essay? You're letting them know from the get-go what the purpose is of their assignment. Okay. Then there's the directions and there's an engagement activity to even start. And the really cool thing is that sometimes it was videos, sometimes it was they are doing little mini art science projects there, and there was think, pair, and shares, and they would actually talk about it to get them the engagement part. Explorations, they were the differentiation labs. There was about eight labs, and I had them set up in boxes. In fact, if I could show you here in the classroom, I have all my labs set up in boxes. They're wonderful, especially for your classroom where you have versatile seating. You could put the pods together and they'd go around and do their pieces. Explanation. Now, depending on how you do it, I would put the explanation before the exploration. And the explanation was always PowerPoints, interactive notebook, that's INB, modified notes if you have students that had difficulty taking notes, and even anchor chart diagrams and ideas. Now there's this one teacher I'm trying to help over at the middle school. She does not have any anchor charts. She thought, I thought there'd be anchor charts available. Well, anchor charts are beautiful, wonderful things. I would highly recommend you looking up ideas from Pinterest, but if you look up anchor charts on Pinterest, you'll notice they are teacher made. You cannot get a good anchor chart unless you really want to pay good money. They are ones that teachers have made themselves. So what you'll find is a lot of ideas of what teachers made and put up in the classroom using those huge sticky note pads, like easel size pads or even just easel paper, and putting up in different colors. Okay, anyway, explanation, then exploration, elaboration, student choice project completed in class or at home. That is why I wanted to bring this up with this universal design. The student choice projects, let's see if I could pull one up here. Elaboration. Okay, I gotta find out which E I'm looking at. make sure that it's pulled up to the right one. Okay, good. All right. Now here, this was a couple different ideas I could use for Newton's laws, the three Newton's laws of physics. After they're all done teaching the 3 Newton's laws, or in intermediate, and this is actually a good idea for a unit, teaching Newton's laws of physics. Choose one project from the list below. Make sure to include all 3 of Newton's laws in each project you choose. All projects are equal points. Look at the ideas they have. A cartoon, a trifold pamphlet, anchor chart. There you go. You see that? Easel paper. A short storybook. A digital infographic. A collage. Experiment write-up. Or if your students are the kind that really can't handle really well working on their own, or something completely different off the list, you could have teacher's choice. Now, you may only have them choose between 3 of them. You have a good group, you can do 5 of them. The more the better. These are a little more elaboration on your elaborations. Draw a cartoon that demonstrates your knowledge of Newton's 3 laws of motion. And there's wonderful softwares out there for free, practically, that help you do that. They could, if you have a student that's really good artistic, this is the way to go. Make a trifold that demonstrates your knowledge of Newton's 3 laws of motion. The best way to explain a trifold is a pamphlet. It'll fold in itself, look all nice and neat. Now, you have a student that really bad sloppy handwriting, is something easily they could do on Microsoft Word. Anchor chart. Again, this is really for your artsy type that does their work as a little more calligraphy, because you can have them draw pictures, do arrows and stuff like that, and words. Write a short story that demonstrates your knowledge of Newton's 3 laws of motion. There. Make a digital infographic that demonstrates your knowledge of Newton's 3 laws of motion. Collage that demonstrates it. Do 3 experiments on each of the Newton's laws and write up your results. And this is really good for your kinesthetic, hands-on type people, and this really is a great one. Okay, after we've done this, I want you to come up with your own project. In fact, one of the things I had to do when I took a grad class in science is I had to build a Rube Goldberg machine, literally. And for those who saw me do it, they're like, oh my gosh. Like, the teacher had left the things so wide open as to what could have been done that I thought it had to be a whole room, because the idea is that he gave us, let's show literally a whole room, when you basically could have just took a part of your classroom to make the machine. So even though only parts of the machine worked, they gave me kudos for attempting the huge amount with the people that I had to help me. So anyway, that aside is universal design and product choice. That's where that was going. Anyway, let's go back to this. Our purpose for this chapter is to provide you with practical guidelines for systematic planning so that you will be able to create effective long-range plans, unit plans, and lesson plans, just as Roberta needs to do. It continues the discussion in chapter 4, covering the 3 main topics: preparation, planning, procedures, and the planning practices of expert teachers. Now, here's some of the techniques you're going to be introduced in this class that will help you answer the following questions. What factors must I consider for instructional planning? What are planning levels and how do I connect them? How can I create an effective unit plan? A lot of you are like, how am I going to create an effective unit plan? You should be asking that, because that's the final for this class. How can I devise a wide range of lesson plans to implement my unit plans and also use technology effectively? What can I learn from the planning techniques of master teachers? Now that one you're going to take beyond this class, and one other part of your assignments is you're going to go and interview what's considered a master teacher. So here is the other piece of one of your assignments. Let's see, this is gonna let me. Okay. Now, interview with a teacher. Interview a teacher in a public school. You are going to ask them the following questions. Remember to take notes and elaborate in a paper. What routines guide the teachers what routines, what sources of information, what thoughts guide this teacher as they plan their unit or daily lesson. Because I know somebody's going to ask, those are the 3 questions you're going to ask. All this is going to be due 17th. Going to be worth 15 points. What I mean by paper, 1, 2, 2 pages. Homework. There. Okay. All right. So here we are. On we go. The actual overall considerations of instructional planning. What did they include? Students. They are the main reason and focus for your instruction. What do you know about them as individuals and as a group? Now, this is important information when you're planning out even groupings and how you're going to do in your instruction. Some students work really well by themselves, some work better in pairs, some better work in groups. How are they going to learn best? If you have students that all learn best by group work, how are you going to set up for that, or pair work, or individual work? Content and process considerations. What is the main idea and the concepts that are involved, and how do you need to teach any prerequisite skills as well? In what order should the instruction be arranged? Are you going to doing some engagement and elaboration first before you can do explorations pieces there? Time considerations. How much time do you have? What other things need to be done in the day? Is your students just not having it, but it's really important for them to do? Having your ducks in a row is really important. Or even if you have the most fantastic lesson plan in the world, everything's going great, you still got 10 minutes or 5 minutes of downtime. Or you got students that work really fast and then they want to sit there. Well, plan for the inevitable. Plan. Even have stuff for downtime, because students, if they're not busy, they fidget or they get in trouble. The downtime or the processes between transitions is some of the trickiest pieces of teaching. They need to be planned for as well. Besides that, school considerations. What are the learning outcomes or standards to be considered? The graduation outcomes, legal outcomes. I had a student ask me, how long am I going to be in school? Was it yesterday? Till you're 18, I told him, like, oh, that's way too long. This was from a 6th grader. And you can tell that he's not engaged. Having students want to write about an essay on the NASA rover because it's required for STEM, and I've had 4 students yesterday in the class outrightly refuse to write who they were because they kept going on about personal identity information. That would have been a great segue into exactly how this was going to be used, because yes, students now, and even in 6th grade, apparently have debit cards or credit cards, and identity theft is a big deal to them because they hear our parents and stuff talk about it. Well, exactly how much can you give? Is it okay for them to give a pseudonym, or how much to give? Because there were students that could barely write down 2 sentences, and there was other students that could go on and on for pages about themselves. Our students need criteria. Other things, resource considerations. How much do you have for resources in your classroom to teach? Yeah, it'd be great to take them on a field trip, but if you live up in Newtown, North Dakota, and you are learning about something, I don't know, Vikings or whatever, and the nearest sea is really far away, and can you do? Can you do a virtual field trip, or how are you going to teach it? And then technical considerations. Does the school have computers, assisted instructional resources to even do that? Like I said, if you can't go on the actual field trip, can you go on a virtual field trip? And then from here, we just already talked about all those factors that affect planning. Resources, guides. I just talked a little bit about curriculum guides. Now, the whole thing with Teachers Pay Teachers is there's great supplemental resources that teachers themselves made from scratch because their curriculums had holes in them and needed the extra materials to do it. And it's always nice to have the teachers pay for it. That's why it's called Teachers Paying Teachers. Anyway, standards and goals. Those are our benchmarks, our areas that we have to teach by. Now, we are not following Common Core per se. North Dakota is following their own standards. But then there's other standards too, like the NCTM standards, the Next Generation Science Standards, the ISTE standards. There's standards coming out our ears on our way to look at. They are significant in helping to organize the instruction because by universe understanding by design, the lessons are built around them. Textbooks, they're a great source for it, the learning. FOSS Science, Touch Math, Houghton Mifflin, you hear a lot of. They provide really great resources and pieces that help with the curriculum, but they even have their shortages. In fact, a lot of times they brush over immensely on so many different things that there might be holes in the curriculum. And you got to realize that Houghton Mifflin, Harcourt Press, all those other ones are big publishers that are built for standards and pieces in huger cities. They may not really be the best pieces for a Midwestern city or even state like us. On all aspects, there's going to be some pieces that might be left behind. No, here. And I forgot Houghton and Mifflin and Harcourt Press have combined. So let's have a look here. What do they have for classroom solutions? Let us go and look at English language development. What do they have? Let's go explore some programs. I think I'm looking at something that I don't want to look at. Maybe. Oh, English language development is ELL. We look at literacy. Literacy solutions. I know Read 180 is being used inside the classrooms up here still. See what else they have. Rigby, PM, English 3D, Saxon phonics and spelling. I know they're doing Saxon math right now. Reading counts, reading inventory. I think Journeys is still being used. Let's have a look here. I thought this would be a good way to do this, but I'm encountering problems, so let us just go back here. Okay. Let's see, other resources, like I mentioned, teachers, government agencies, colleagues, local library, mentor texts. Mentor texts are really big, and we talk about them a little bit in the English language arts, literacy type classes. So there's many different resources. Okay. We're going to get into the cycle. Now, your book on page 118 has got a really wonderful diagram on the cycle, the instructional planning cycle, that talks about the different things that go into it. And the PowerPoint actually breaks these down. That is wonderful. I'm glad that they do that. Developing long-range plans. Long-range plans inside a classroom would pretty much look like a pacing calendar. What exactly you're teaching at what time and about what things are important. They also call it curriculum mapping, and teachers usually in the summertime during a development week or even month, that's where they do a lot of their planning for the next semester. And they don't really require a lot of teachers to do it. Usually they have a head teacher for each of the grades that's responsible for that. But it's always a great opportunity to earn a little extra money as a teacher, is to go in during the summer for a month for a few hours every day and start on that, so you're not doing that in August, planning your classroom and everything else in between. Content. What content is going to be available? It's the essence of most lessons. Textbooks are usually the biggest piece of inventories for the content. Require being selective, though, is being stressed, because a lot of textbook companies, like I mentioned before, can have way too much. Do not let your you probably have endured classes that have overloaded with content. They have more facts and details than anyone can remember. Do not be one of those classes. Have more content that's relevant around the major idea. So you could have, like I have for these classes, there's 10 different objectives just for this chapter alone. I'm not going to cover every single one of them. There's no way. Covering the best parts of certain ones is better. Okay. Deciding on the processes, the thinking processes that are going to be involved. Some of them are imagining, problem solving, comparing, contrasting, analyzing, organizing, classifying, and numerous others. They are critical to almost any subject or topic you're teaching. As you identify content for your units and lessons, note to make it a point to identify these processes during instruction to help students become more aware of deliberate uses of their own thought processes. So whatever you are trying to get to them to do, what are you going to have? One of my favorite examples is my husband, the PE teacher, got to help with a social studies class once a couple of years ago when they were talking about, or it was history, actually it was history, about what happened to the Roman government way back in its day, why Rome crumbled. It basically had decayed from within. And my husband had used an example that was kind of gross but interesting to the students at the same time, where he talked about the bite of a black widow spider. And it showed a video up on YouTube what had happened to the progression of that bite to that poor person once they weren't able to get the proper anti-venom for it. The arm basically rotted and decayed from around the bite, and it looked really big, gross. But it was pretty impactful for those students to get the understanding of what could happen with rotting from within, and that's basically what had happened to the Roman government because they were, you know, being there for their people. So impacts like that are really going to help the students to actually get what they're supposed to be learning. Identifying students' entry levels and readiness levels. You're going to have students at different pieces. Doing the dipstick, they call the dipstick approach, making sure that as you are asking questions to start with, where their levels are at, looking at the level of work and stuff they've been producing up to that point, and even as you're doing your lectures and as you're doing your stuff, are you having the engagement of your students? Are they engaged in there as they need to be? And preparing around that. If you have students that, you know, the science vocabulary, the vocabulary you're looking at is going to be really extensive or immensive, having vocabulary lists is really big so that they can pick from stuff if they're fill in the blank or doing a quiz. Having them have checklists for things, something as simple if they write an essay. Did you do this? Did you use proper capitalization? Did you indent? Did you da, 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 da. All those things are important. Okay. And then incorporating learning activities. Hands-on, interactive, experiments, and role-playing, there should be considered to be in your long-term planning and how you're planning on doing them. What are the things are they going to do to show their learning? That's like the pieces of product choice, demonstrations, things of that sort, in order for students to succeed successfully according to their levels. Those need to be thought of in the planning. Okay. I no idea where I'm at in the recording piece. I have no idea how long. I'm gonna take a short breather break here a moment. I know I've been talking for quite a while. Just give you guys a moment to process is really important here. Now, taking all this in, again, there's a lot that goes in to the process of planning and looking at plans. Now, parts of a unit plan. Your understanding by design unit, which this would be the good place for me to pull up the template and we really start talking about it from here, and I will in a moment. Let's look at this though. Your topic, your subject, the reason for why you're teaching the subject, why it's important for the students to learn, whether it's because the standards told them so, there's something coming up that's important for them to learn. Their reasoning a lot of times will have to do around the instructional objectives. Then your content, whether it be the understandings, questions, and things that you're going to be answering, or the pieces of it. Processes, we just talked about those processes, the beginning, the middle, the end, the activities, the long range, what is your goal at the end that you want them to do. Then selecting the resources and materials, creating the activities, and formulating the assessment tools. Now, going here. Gonna go back over to week 5 and 6, and I'm going to pick up the link to show the understanding by design lesson planning pieces up to this point. Now, as I do this, I'm going to end this lecture and then I'm going to pick up again in another piece and have this as 2-part videos, because the second part video I'm actually going to post in your homework assignment for today and leave just this piece in the participation, because I think we're going to need a little bit of a break. Remember to check out the other video.